Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Dapo Adegboye. The top stories at this hour. President Tinubu re-elected as ECOWAS chairman demands financial commitment from member states to fight terrorism. The NUJ condemns abduction of 2 journalist families in Kaduna State. Political and civil society groups meet to find an end to Sudan's lingering war. Details in a moment. Let's begin by telling you that President Bola Tinubu has been re-elected as the chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, about 1 year after he took over the leadership of the regional bloc. The Nigerian leader, who rose to power in May 2023, was re-elected as the ECOWAS chairman during the 65th ordinary session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government. The event took place at the presidential villa in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, on Sunday. Now, during his opening remark at the summit, the president urged ECOWAS member states to make financial commitments to help in the battle against terrorism in the region. The Nigerian president also spoke on the level of insecurity in the Sahel countries and economic instability in the West African region. At the end of Sunday's summit, President Tinubu nominated Senegalese President Diomaye Faye to become the special envoy to do around-clock work with the Sahel countries.
Excellencies and state government, distinguished guests, we have convened this ordinary session to once again review the situation in our region. We are aware of the enormous challenges, including terrorist activities and violent extremism, threatening to spread from Sahel region towards the coastal states, especially those that witnessed constitutional changes of government. The decision of the 3 Sahel countries of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger to withdraw from ECOWAS has also been noticed. Our partners are carrying out critical intervention in countries affected by humanitarian crisis. Excellencies, head of state and government, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me underscore that a peaceful and secure society is essential for achieving our potential. As we move to operationalize the ECOWAS Standby Force, ESF, in combating terrorism, I must emphasize that the success of this plan requires not only strong political will, but also substantial financial resources.
In the meantime, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has reassured the Nigerian army of his administration's support in improving the security architecture of the nation. The president, represented by the Minister of Defense, Mohammed Abubakar, was speaking at 161 annual Nigerian Army Day celebration hosted by the 3rd Division of Maxwell Kobe Cantonment, Jos, the Plateau State capital. Now, News Central's Chizoba Nyonwe was there and completes the report.
The Nigerian Army Day celebration at the capital city of Jos was filled with glitz and glamour to celebrate the successes of the army and to chart a way forward for greater strides. Those in attendance include the Governor of Plateau State, Caleb Mutfwang, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, and other service chiefs. The President, represented by the Minister of Defense, urged the leadership of the Army to make use of newly acquired combat enablers as well as other resources to ensure the new dimensions of the nation's adversaries are brought to a halt. He reassured his commitment for greater support to the Nigerian Army.
As a commander-in-chief, my administration is committed to building a well-equipped and truly professional army that will remain the pride of the nation. We are committed to providing you with all that you need to enable you to fulfill your
With this display of equipment and skills, the Chief of the Army Staff is confident that sooner than later, insecurity will be reduced to its barest minimum.
The Nigerian Army, under my watch, is committed to improve our social effectiveness, to meet ever-changing violence and harmful threats to the nation.
There was a launch of these surveillance aircraft as part of efforts to improve the security of the country. Some personnel were also decorated for meritorious awards by the Chief of Army Staff.
The 2024 Nigerian Army Day celebration has finally come to an end. It now beholds on the Nigerian Army, the personnel and the troops on the ground to ensure that all that has been said here today is put into practice for a more secure Nigeria. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyoyi.
It has become a trend in Nigeria as suspected criminal-minded individuals invade religious centers, especially churches, to vandalize property and equipment. Apart from these persons going on to these perceived holy places to steal, it raises a question on where else is safe if the churches can now be raided easily in the frequency of it happening across the country. Now, in this special report, News Central's Austin seeks to unravel the general collapse in our value system with the rise of theft cases in churches.
Religious houses are basically places of worship, but the rate of stealing oozing out from God's houses has remained a source of sorrow and tears to a number of Nigerians. More worrisome is the trend of suspected criminal-minded individuals breaking into worship centers like churches, mosques, among others, using these religious spaces to rip off their equipment. But some of these Christian faithful speak on why suspected criminals are stealing church equipment.
Many of them, because of the financial challenge confronting them, they see churches as an avenue where they could loot, steal things, and they will not be brought to justice.
Criminals are diverting to churches because they see that some churches have now become commercial centers, which is very, very bad.
Apart from insecurity, Nigeria, we are in hard times now.
Meanwhile, here at the Ekpan police station in Uya local government area of the state, these items that belong to churches and individuals seems to have been recovered from these suspected criminals that looted warehouses, burgled churches and carted away with these items and equipment ranging from air conditioners, sound systems, cooking pots, cooking gas cylinders, beds, gates, among others. In the same vein, this lawmaker narrated how his wife's shop was burgled, tied his 3 security men to chairs, and carted away with 112 bags of rice, solar, among others.
The 29th of May, I got a distress call from my wife that our warehouse was burgled.
The mouthpiece of the State Police Command, who briefed newsmen on how these items were recovered, said the suspects carrying out these operations used 2 Sienna vehicles and 1 shuttle bus to carry the stolen items. He said efforts are on to arrest other members of the gang and recover their operational vehicle.
What they do is that when they get to either warehouses, church premises, or places for reception, they tie up the security personnel around there. They're always armed with guns. They go with 3 vehicles, 2 Sienna vehicles, and a minibus. They open the booth and pack up everything they have there.
Some of those arrested in connection with the stolen items, both buyers and sellers, narrated their level of involvement.
I bought 22 bags for 60,000. Optimal rice.
Now motor now send me I escort before, but the load, so that load, so we not carry, they not supply the load out.
The people stay in scrapyard. They go come, they go like they bring a come. If they bring a come, I go so into Arinze.
Nigeria, a country known for its rich cultural heritage and reverence for sacred places, has witnessed a decline in the sanity of these reverent places, leading to an erosion of the respect and protection accorded to the places, including churches. In Asaba, for News Central, Austin Azu.
Still talking insecurity, two journalists, Abdul Ghaffar Alebelewe of the Nation and Abdul Rahim Abdu of Blueprint newspaper, together with spouses and kids, were kidnapped by bandits on Saturday night after they broke into Jajonu community in Millennium City, Chukun local government area of Kaduna State. Alebelewe is also the current chairman of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Kaduna State Council Correspondence Chapter, and Taufik Olayemi, a relative of one of the victims, corroborated the occurrence and stated that the bandits broke into the area at around 10:30 p.m., shooting randomly before committing their crime. Olayemi said the bandits kidnapped Alabelewe, his wife, and two children, while Abdu and his wife who was also sick, was kidnapped, leaving behind their sick daughter. Meanwhile, the Kaduna State Council of the Nigerian Union of Journalists has condemned the abduction of two of its members on Saturday night in Kaduna. The condemnation was expressed in a joint statement released on Sunday in Kaduna by the Secretary Gambo Sanga and the Chairman of the Council, Amsu Halidu. The Kaduna State Council of the NUJ, however, enjoined all practicing journalists in the state to be vigilant in their daily activities, while also praying for the safe return of their abducted colleagues and family. Earlier, the national president of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Chris Isiguzo, joined us on the news to discuss this.
It's so sad that in this time and age, journalists who are supposed to be people that engage in essential services, social services, as the case may be, the people who provide voices for the voiceless, are now themselves becoming victims of this kind of armed banditry. It's sad, it's quite condemnable, and I want to join my council in Kaduna State to condemn this first and appeal to the hostage takers or the bandits or the kidnappers or the abductors, as the case may be, to quickly release these people, because they have not run foul of the law or done anything that is outside the norm, invading their houses at about 10 p.m. last night and destroying things and picking them, and you can imagine the psychological trauma on those children. For Abdul Ghaffar, the two children that were taken is between 10 years and 8 years. The first is 10, the second is 8 years. And these small young lads are subjected to this kind of psychological trauma. It is so terrible, and we really appeal to government and the security operatives to redouble their efforts. We're already in touch with the police in Kaduna State. We're in touch with the DSS in Kaduna and even at the national headquarters. I know that they are working around the clock to ensure that these journalists and members of their families are released unharmed. We pray that they are released as quickly as possible, actually.
Let's move to judicial matters now, where the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has ordered a former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Umar Farouk, to account for payments of 729 billion naira to 24.3 million poor Nigerians for 6 months. The court also ordered the former minister to provide the list and details of the beneficiaries who received the payments, the number of states covered, and the payments per state. The judgment was delivered in June by Justice Dende Isaac, following a Freedom of Information suit brought by the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project. In the meantime, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, will on Wednesday, July 3rd, swear in the 12 newly appointed judges of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory. A statement by the Director of Press and Information of the Supreme Court, Dr. Festus Akonde, said the swearing-in ceremony would hold at the main courtroom of the Supreme Court of Nigeria by 10 a.m. Let's go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. Let's tell you that the United Nations has once again forecast that by 2030, 82 million Nigerians, that is approximately 64% of the country's population, could face hunger. The organization urges the government to address climate change, pest infestation, and other threats to agricultural productivity. This warning follows a continual rise in food prices across the nation. The National Bureau of Statistics reports that in May 2024, Nigeria's food inflation rate reached a historic high of 40.66%, surpassing April's rate of 40.53%. This marks the most significant annual increase in food prices since record-keeping began in 1996. To discuss this further, I am joined by strategy analyst Dapo Oyewole. Thank you for your time, Dapo. Now, how effective have past government interventions been in addressing Nigeria's food insecurity, particularly in the light of this projected 82 million Nigerians being at risk of hunger by 2030? And should we take this forecast again, seriously or with a pinch of salt?
Okay, well, with the current realities we have on ground, I'd say we take it seriously. A whole hog seriously, I'm not sure. The numbers may be a bit exaggerated, but at this point, we don't want to take any chances because invariably we're dealing with human life and human sustainability. And either way you look at it, it's a fundamental human right of anyone to be fed, to have access to food, to have access to food security. But with regards to past interventions by government, how effective it's been, I'd say it's been somewhat effective. We can't say everything has been rubbish. It's been somewhat effective, but unfortunately, that the actual impact that we're hoping it would have had that's not what we have as a reality, unfortunately. But it has been somewhat effective. But what we've also seen in time past is that with certain individuals, they find ways to see how they could circumvent the entire process and sabotage it. I'll give you a very good example. Now in Lagos State, Nigeria, the state government constituted markets in different parts of the state, different local governments. I can't remember the exact number now. And for everything you buy there, everything has been subsidized by, I believe, at least like 40%. And I believe 2 months ago, the Commissioner for Agriculture was seen in a particular video where she summoned the market folks and she was complaining bitterly. And what was the issue? It was that certain folks would come from outside the market, buy up subsidized goods at the 40% rate, take it outside to resell at exorbitant prices. So these are part of the issues that we're facing as a people, and these are part of the issues that the government is trying to see how they can curtail. Now, I'm not holding brief for the government, but I'm just trying to lay all the factors on the table. Adequately, you've said that climate change is a problem, pests are a problem. In Nigeria, insecurity is also a problem. But I believe that when we want to have these conversations holistically, we must see that all the factors are on the table and we know where all the challenges are coming from.
I think I'm going to stay with you on the analysis you gave, as regards people sabotaging the process itself. I mean, do you think also that the government, is doing enough to properly handle this human factor when it comes to the aspect of sabotage? Because I also, go into the market sometimes and I ask, why is it that basic food items keep increasing almost every time? I mean, one excuse they all keep giving is transportation. But then when you look at it truly, yes, we know the current rate per pump price. But I mean, if you look at it, commensurate with the items they're selling, you would ask, something isn't adding up here. What do you think can be done to control this human factor of sabotage?
Well, unfortunately, what the government can do for now is mostly reactionary. on a case-by-case basis because they don't also want to come off as being draconian. But the reality of it is this, and I'll go back to the point you made about people using transportation as an excuse, because I've been having this conversation for a couple of months with a lot of people in different spaces, and that's the excuse. So I'll give a brief analysis of how that transportation bit is not entirely true. Last year, we removed the fuel subsidy, right? The cost of items went up, cost of food went up. They'll tell you that, oh, okay, because so they could have access to other commodities and other items, they also needed to increase the price of their items. Fine. But at what percentage? Because if we're saying that's cost of transportation, we know for a fact that over 80 to 90% of the vehicles that bring all these farm produces from the market, from the farms to the market, are diesel powered. And we know that the subsidy on diesel has been removed forever in Nigeria. So why is the fuel subsidy that was taken off of petrol now affecting the cost of transportation on vehicles that are powered by diesel? So that in itself will simply tell you that people that use excuses like that and that are very comfortable with coming up with a lot of still excuses,
all right,
of that kind are not operating in good faith.
Do you think some elements of enforced price?
Of it.
Do you think some element of enforced price control on the part of the government should be an option?
At this point, yes, it is. At this point, yes, it is, because we run the risk. I don't want to be an alarmist, but we run the risk of having food riots and different social breakdown as a result of people saying that they don't have access to food they can buy, having access to food they can afford. So yes, at this point, I personally would endorse the government coming in to see how they can control the price one way or the other. I'm aware that they're trying to see the modalities to see how they can go about it, but I would recommend that it be done. And if it means that they need to collaborate with different people within the value chain, within the agri value chain, with regards to using technology and other things, even if it is using USSD, where you can say, okay, we have contact with the farmers. We know that this is how much a bag of tomatoes is leaving the market. And you can say in 10 local governments in a particular state, the margins between them is maybe 10, 15, 7 naira. And how much is that particular batch when it finally gets to the market? So we can also get that data from that end to know where the problems are coming from, because this is really not sustainable and people are really groaning, people are really complaining. The cost of to buy a crate of egg now is around 5,000 naira. That's ridiculous. And it's been going up year on year in the last 2 years. The last time I had this conversation, it was months ago, when the price was starting to go up and it was becoming something that was unreachable to a lot of people. And we're talking about eggs now, just basic eggs. Not even the chickens that lay that people cannot afford. So anyway, these are things that I believe that the government can do to ensure that they get it done.
All right, Adegboye, just a quick one before I let you go. Now, we've talked about food availability. Let's talk about the production aspect. And of course, we know that on the production aspect, there's a bit of constraint in terms of security, importantly, and then there's also liquidity in terms of funding and all of that. But right now, I think Nigeria is at a pace where production, doesn't seem to match up with the population explosion. And other options or alternatives are beginning to come up. One of it is GMOs, that's genetically modified food items. I would like to know your take on this.
Yes, it is true that we aren't producing as much as we're required to have, but GMOs for me is a no-no. It's a no-no. We've had this particular conversation as an alternative, I believe 5-6 years ago, if I'm correct, and I did a bit of a deep dive into it. And I can tell you that GMOs are not something that we want to have introduced into the Nigerian system. It isn't. It isn't. I'll give you a very, very brief scenario. So, for example, you want to grow strawberries in the Nigerian climate, and I'm sure the only place that maybe we can have the temperature to grow it is maybe somewhere like Jos. So if you want to grow it in somewhere that's hotter than Jos, you want to grow strawberries in there. So you need to look for a particular animal that has a huge resistance to heat. Then you extract something. I mean, scientists can fact check me on this, but from what I understood from it, I'll just give a layman's explanation of it. So you extract some enzyme from that particular animal, let's say a lizard, that makes it resistant to heat aside from its skin. And then you inject it into the seed of the fruit you're trying to grow, and you grow it, and then something that's supposed to take like 3 months pops out in 2 weeks, and then you go out to sell it in the market. Now, the problem is, when you consume that particular fruit, because your body isn't designed or equipped to process that particular enzyme that was extracted and infused into the fruit, then it just lodges somewhere. Then you have a lot of that consumed, and then we're wondering where all these strange ailments are coming from, all the strange cancers, where they're coming from. So these are part of the issues. And this is one thing that they're dealing with a lot, especially in the place like the US, where they have basically majority of the food items being genetically modified. So personally for me, in Nigeria, GMOs are a no-no. Its long-term benefits are just significantly more damaging to us as a people, to us with our population. But addressing the current volume of production that we have now, we'll have to look at insecurity, we have to look at the issue of pests, we have to look at the issue of financing, see how we can make financing accessible. With the issue of climate change, I mean, we can only react to that. There's nothing we can do about it, except to see how we can have maybe floating farms, depending on what you're trying to have, grown. So that would be my recommendation. But GMOs, again, emphatically, I would say that's a big no.
All right, Dapo Yewale, a strategy analyst. Thank you for your time on the news.
Thank you for having me.
All right. In the event of a flood, residents and emergency personnel face the risk of unclean water exposure, leading to various skin conditions. This uncertain contamination levels in flood water can cause infections, inflammation, and stress-related skin diseases, raising serious health concerns. Now, News Central's Bettina Mweli tells us more in this package.
Flooding can devastate our homes and our health, particularly our skin. Floodwaters teem with harmful bacteria, chemicals, and debris, leading to serious skin issues. This makes it crucial to prioritize skin care after exposure to floodwaters.
If I actually get home, I'm actually going to take a very good care of my skin. I will literally use hot water to bathe and antiseptic, like or more. I will drown myself there for like hours because I have a very delicate skin and I react to little things.
There are creams that one can apply at least to take good care of the skin, to put it in order so that you are not infected with any disease.
Floodwaters strip your skin's natural oils, leaving it dry and irritated. It is important to avoid further exposure to contaminated water. If cleanup is necessary, wear protective gloves and clothing to protect your skin.
We have seen an increase in certain skin conditions as a result of the climate change. The warmer weather promotes the growth of fungal skin infections in particular. And worldwide, there has been an increase in fungal skin infections, and some of them are even becoming resistant to treatment. Skin diseases actually are one of the top 10 reasons for people visiting outpatient clinics or to see a doctor. And also skin diseases are one of the top 5 causes of disabilities amongst the general public. The first step to having good skin is to eat healthily, have a healthy lifestyle. So eat lots of fruits, vegetables, drink lots of water. Enemies of the skin like sugar, like alcohol, and then smoking. These are things that can damage the skin if they're taken, a lot or even at all.
Protecting your skin after floodwater exposure fends off infections and keeps it healthy. Your skin is your body's first defense. Experts urge us to treat it right, and it will do same for you. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Mweli.
The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency says its operatives have raided the Lagos base of a high-profile cocaine syndicate, where large consignments of a Class A drug meant for export and local distribution were recovered. According to the NDEA, the syndicate is headed by a couple, Agbakoba John, Madu, and Agbakoba Ijeoma Chinwe, as well as their associate Okoye Ifeoma Mary Jane. The agency spokesperson, Femi Babafemi, who disclosed this in a statement on Sunday, said the raid carried out by a special operations unit of the agency followed months of intelligence gathering and surveillance on the syndicates notorious for packaging, distributing and trafficking of cocaine within and outside the country. Some education stakeholders in Nigeria have called for efforts to tackle a learning crisis made worse by a lack of access to education in the country. This was during the launch of an initiative by the Africa Youth Growth Foundation, expected to help Nigeria's government reduce the number of out-of-school children, which has consistently increased despite several efforts by government to tackle this challenge. News Central's Edon Joseph tells us more.
According to a 2024 report by the United Nations Children Education Fund, Nigeria accounts for a large portion of out-of-school children globally, with over 20 million lacking access to education. The report further states that this represents about 96% rise from a previous 10.5 million in 2021. UNICEF identifies factors like poverty, insecurity, child labor among others for being responsible and calls for urgent action as they pose a dire situation for the country.
A risk that in the next 10 to 20 years, if not addressed, could swallow the entire country, could compromise her development, her security, her livelihood, and collective existence.
To address the core issues outlined in Goal 4 of the Sustainable Development Goals, which emphasizes the need to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education for all, some families in the Kuromajiji community in the FCT have received support for their children.
Your commitment to covering the fees of 65 individuals, peoples, is a monumental contribution.
It's an initiative to support, among other objectives, enrollment of 2 million out-of-school children back to school in the next 5 years. We also intend to support teachers' recruitment and training.
While acknowledging the needs to complement government's efforts, some stakeholders have called for unity of purpose to encourage equal access to education.
Let us continue to support initiatives that promote education, skill development, and community engagement.
We sincerely hope that more organizations that are local, as well as private organizations, will be able to come up so that we are not all sitting on time bomb.
With Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast, banditry in the northwest, and secessionist activities in the southeast, all identified to pose threats to efforts at making education accessible to children, stakeholders have called for a multifaceted approach to tackle these challenges. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
A joint team from Nigeria's Rural Electrification Agency and the World Bank visited the University of Maiduguri in Borno State to evaluate the ongoing Energizing education project. The initiative aims to enhance education by providing reliable electricity through a 12-megawatt solar hybrid power plant at the tertiary institution and the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
This is the 12 kilowatts hybrid power plant designed to provide uninterrupted electricity to enhance learning environments and effective healthcare at the University of Maiduguri and its teaching hospital. The federal government initiative saw the joint team from Rural Electrification Agency and the World Bank here assessing the progress of the ongoing project.
The installation of the PHYB has been done, the cabling almost done, civil work of the construction of the world-class training center has also been completed. What needs to be done is to complete the distribution line, which will take the electrons from the power plant to the teaching hospital and the university.
In places like Maiduguri,
it's going to be much more difficult for having large grid-based projects. We had this project, as you are seeing today, is part of the first 350 million phase of Nigeria electrification program. We have recently expanding it to 750 million with $1 billion private sector funding, because we feel Nigerians will need a lot of solar power in smaller communities as part of access.
This is a form of job creation. This is a form of impacting lives of people in general in the country. A plant like this should last between 7 to 10 years before it needs any form of overhaul. But within that period, as I said earlier, we need constant maintenance.
The federal government and the World Bank officials also met with Borno State Acting Governor to discuss the project's implementation and its potential impact on the state.
The effort of the federal government in ensuring that our people at the grassroots, felt the impact of governance is well, appreciated.
The officials emphasized the importance of community engagement in the implementation of the Energizing education project.
The university will do its best in the area of maintenance for the purpose of sustainability.
The intervention, which addresses energy, among others in tertiary institutions, requires the academic community takes ownership of it.
It has been a remarkable opportunity, and I'm so glad for investing in my knowledge and for being a catalyst in my journey towards acquiring invaluable knowledge on renewable energy.
There are some of the times that we want to take a practical, but because there is no consistent light, it has to be shifted. But when there is a consistent light with this solar project, we won't have an issue with that. I'm really excited because it has opened my eyes to see better options in life and to explore the renewable energy space.
The project is currently under construction and is expected to be completed and commence operations soon. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Let's go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. The news continues in West Africa, where Niger's military leader, General Abdurrahman Chiani, says that the people of his country, along with neighbors Mali and Burkina Faso, have irrevocably turned their backs on the West African regional bloc. The comments came at the first summit of the Alliance of Sahel States, which Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso set up after pulling out of ECOWAS earlier this year. The three countries accuse ECOWAS of being manipulated by former colonial ruler France, with Chiani calling for the new bloc to become a community far removed from the stronghold of foreign powers.
Les chefs d'État se sont félicités de leur retrait irrévocable et sans délai de la CEDEAO. Les chefs d'État ont exprimé leur satisfaction pour le succès enregistré grâce à la mutualisation des moyens des trois États dans la lutte contre le terrorisme. Ils ont adopté le traité instituant la confédération entre le Burkina Faso, la République du Mali et la République du Niger, dénommée Confédération des États du Sahel, en abrégé AES. Sur les questions de développement, les chefs d'État ont souligné la nécessité de mutualiser leurs moyens en vue de mettre en place des projets structurels.
In East Africa, Sudanese political and civil society groups met in Egypt to discuss ways to end the war engulfing Sudan. The warring parties, however, didn't take part in the Egypt-sponsored conference. Recall that simmering tensions between the nation's military and an infamous paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, erupted into open warfare in the country's capital, Khartoum, in April of last year, plunging Sudan into anarchy. According to the United Nations, the devastating conflict has killed more than 14,000 persons and wounded 33,000 others. However, rights activists say the toll could be much higher. Papua New Guinea's influential petroleum minister, Jeremy Maladina, has been charged with assault following a domestic dispute near Sydney's famed Bondi Beach, according to Australian police on Sunday. Maladina, who is a crucial player in the ongoing international negotiations over a lucrative natural gas project, was arrested on Saturday morning. As police said, they found a 31-year-old woman with facial injuries after they were called to an address near Bondi, allegedly sustained in an altercation with Maledina. According to court records, he is expected to appear in Sydney this Thursday to answer to charges of assault causing actual bodily harm. Let's also tell you that Pope Francis has decried the state of democracy and warned against populists during a short visit to Terzi in Italy northeast on Sunday ahead of a 12-day trip to Asia, the longest of his papacy. Ahead of last month's European Parliament elections, bishops in several countries also warned about the rise of populism and nationalism, with far-right parties already holding the reins of power in Italy, Hungary and the Netherlands. Francis also urged people to move away from what he called polarizations that impoverish.
Alla luce di questa definizione è evidente che nel mondo di oggi la democrazia, diciamo la verità, non gode di buona salute. La parola stessa democrazia non coincide semplicemente con il voto del popolo. Nel frattempo a me preoccupa il numero ridotto della gente che è andata a votare. Cosa significa?
In business, Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shatima has called for a significant shift from dependence on oil to other critical sectors with attractive investment returns in Nigeria. He identified agriculture, manufacturing, renewable energy, and digital innovation, amongst other sectors, as potential investment grounds to explore, saying they align with the nation's development priorities outlined in the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. The Vice President also stated this during the existing Foreign Direct Investors Roundtable at the banquet hall of the Presidential Villa, Abuja. Noted that the 8-point agenda of the renewed hope administration of President Bola Tinubu signals diverse avenues for investment, from agriculture to renewable energy. Former Liverpool midfielder Thiago reportedly retired from football at 33 due to persistent injuries. He played only 5 minutes in Liverpool's 2023-24 season due to hip and muscular issues, despite surgery and previous summer. After a decorated career that began at Barcelona, where he won La Liga and the Champions League, and continued at Bayern Munich with Bundesliga titles and another Champions League, Thiago struggled with fitness at Liverpool, managing just 68 league appearances in 4 seasons. With 42 caps for Spain, he chose retirement after Liverpool opted not to renew his contract, planning his next football chapter. Lauren Jackson-Hill, as Australia's top women's basketball player, has been chosen to compete in her 5th Olympics, marking a comeback 12 years after her last appearance in London. Now 43, a mother of 2, Jackson debuted for Australia 27 years ago and was integral to their medal-winning performances at their 4 consecutive Olympics from 2000 to 2012. A full-time WNBA MVP, she retired in 2016 due to knee issues, but returned briefly 2 years ago to vie for one final Olympic berth. Jackson joined seasoned Olympians and Tano aiming to enhance Australia's medal tally beyond their previous silvers and bronzes. And of course, still in the world of sports, Yeri Jackson, the 24-year-old cornerback for the Minnesota Vikings, tragically passed away in a car accident early Saturday morning in Prince George's County, Maryland, alongside Jackson, his former high school teammate, Isaiah Hazel and Anthony Leeton Jr. also lost their lives when their Dodge Charger collided with another vehicle, attempting a high-speed lane change. Jackson, drafted by the Vikings in the 4th round earlier this year, had not yet played a game. The Vikings expressed deep sorrow over the incident, extending condolences to Jackson's families, friends, and teammates, and all affected by the heartbreaking accident. And that's a wrap on the news at this time, but before we go, another look at some of our top stories. We told you that Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has been re-elected as ECOWAS chairman, as he's seeking financial commitment from member states to fight terrorism. We also told you that the NUJ has condemned the abduction of 2 journalist family members in Kaduna State. Political and civil society groups meet to find an end to Sudan's lingering war. Don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live across these platforms: DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Dapo Adegboye. See you soon.